Good morning, church. I'm going to tell you a little bit how I went into being some type of nurse and why I want to get back into being some type of nurse. And you also see me up here in my scrubs with my stethoscope, and I will get into telling you why. I'm going to tell you why God made nurses, CNAs, direct support professional nurses, and caregivers, angels and scrubs without wings. I went to college for nursing, but that didn't work out for me. So I went and got different nursing certifications. I got my CNA, home health aide, caregiver, hospice, direct support professional. I got certified in much more as wound care, medical first aid, CPR, AED training, COVID-19 basic life support training, and breathing emergency trainings. Well, I went to work as a CNA in Guyman at the nursing home, since that's where they were doing CNA classes at the time, and the classes were for emergency CNAs that can go to work soon as possible. So I started my classes, which to me was fun. We were doing hands-on training one day, and we were helping change this lady's depends. And I got done wiping her, and we were rolling her back over onto her back, and I realized she wasn't breathing. That's when I knew she had just died in my arms. That day I went to lunch after that, and I was in shock still from the whole thing with the lady dying in my arms. I said, this isn't something I want to deal with. No way, no how. I went to the instructor and told her that I can't do this job anymore, I'm sorry. So that day after lunch, she sent me home because I was in shock and told her that I couldn't do the job. Later that night, the instructor called to talk to me about staying and doing that job. We had a nice long talk on the phone about why I should stay to do the job and how rewarding it would be. The instructor convinced me to stay. I did the classes and I did the job. Even though I wasn't there for long because it was in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic when I went to work at the nursing home. My next job as a nurse was over in Liberal. That's where I took care of mentally handicapped, disabled people. The house I worked at had pedophiles, rapists, and molesters that were all guys, so they had to have a guy go work over there. Because in the interview process, when they were hiring me, they asked me if I would be interested in doing that. I said, I'll give it a try. So they put me over at that house. I'd help them with cleaning, preparing meals, exercising, taking medications, and doing bed checks on them at night. I would take them out shopping when it was time to spend their weekend money. We would go out to eat as part of them spending their weekend money. We would play board games, card games, and even a couple of video games while we were there. And we would also watch movies, but the movies had to be nothing with cops or violence or any kid movies. It was hard to deal with the process of working with mentally handicapped, disabled, pedophiles, rapists, and molesters. They couldn't go out in public unless they had one of us direct support professionals with them. That was a guy. They couldn't go anywhere where there was a lot of kids, and we had to be with them 24/7. And that was the process of how we dealt with them. There were 5 to 6 of them in the house that I worked at. I worked 12-hour shifts overnight from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., or even longer than that if one of the other workers didn't want to show up. I remember one day I took a client for surgery, and I was supposed to leave at 8 o'clock that morning from the hospital. One of the other direct support professionals was supposed to show up and relieve me. But that never happened. That day I worked from 6 p.m. to 3 p.m. the next day. I was never released by another worker, which happened a lot because nobody wanted to work with the clients that I worked with. My clients even threatened to kill me before. They had to have all the knives locked up, or really anything that was sharp. They couldn't help themselves as much, so that's when the role of the direct support professional nurse comes into play. We were there to help them with the problem. We were there to be counselors for them. We were there to make sure they got the medication they needed. We were there to help them improve in everyday life so they didn't have to go back to jail for the stuff they've done. Being a direct support professional nurse is a great thing because you get to help the mentally handicapped disabled people. Even though that some of them are rapists, pedophiles, molesters, it was a challenging job, but I loved doing it because I was able to help them and I was able to coach them in doing better and teaching them new things and ways of doing stuff to help make their life easier. As a direct support professional nurse, we had to make sure clients took a shower, dressed properly. We had to make sure they had food made to the diet they were on. We had to make sure that they didn't have any sores on their bodies. We had to make sure that they didn't have any broken bones. We had to make sure they got their medication on time. We also even had to make sure they had someone there to talk to because they even threatened to kill themselves or they threatened to almost kill one of the other clients. But if the direct support professional wasn't there, it would have happened. But I wouldn't allow that. Because we would talk about their problems and stuff. We would even go play a couple games and talk about their problems. We have had the cops called over to the house that I worked at because of threats, and now I even had clients who fought me, and I had to use ISYS, which is a technique to defend ourselves and to make sure the client was safe. I've had the cops come over to my client's house one time because one of them broke out 2 windows and started swinging his walker and at us and hit me and even punched me full force. And the cops had to handcuff him to stop him. But before she was able to put the handcuffs on, he was punching her. So she called the ambulance to have myself and her checked out. So they took that client to Larned, Kansas, to the mental institution there to get more help than I could provide for him. But he did get to come back almost 6 months later and was much better than before. He had a whole different attitude towards everyone. He was much more happier. He would let me tuck him in to bed at night. He would only yell for me if he needed to go to the restroom or get something to drink or whatever. If I wasn't working, most of my clients would stay in their rooms and away from the other direct support professionals because they loved how I treated them, because I treated them just the way I would want to be treated if I was in their shoes. And that's my time as a direct support professional. I remember that time I just received my new expensive stethoscope that was Bluetooth. That thing came in hand. It helped me save my client's life and also helped me save my own mother's life, along with all my other Bluetooth vital sign devices. I remember that day that I saved my mother's life with all my medical equipment. She was barely breathing, or to where you couldn't even tell she was breathing at all. So I grabbed my stethoscope and listened to her chest. I took her vital signs and found out her oxygen level was way lower than what it was supposed to be. That time, me and Shalisha loaded her up into the vehicle and took her to the hospital. The doctor told me I was the one who saved her life because if I didn't check her oxygen levels and blood pressure or even listen to her chest, she could have died if it wasn't for me. Then I also helped take care of Riley's mom, Ruby, when she had cancer. Rick asked me to help since I knew how. Shalisha helped her shower, and I remember Ruby telling me she wishes Rick and Riley didn't have to go through all this with me. But I'm glad my son, Riley, has a friend who knows about nursing stuff to help take care of me. She told me that she wanted to pay me. I said no, because you need the money more than I do. I will always remember helping her because she needed it. I would help her to go to the bathroom and help her back to her chair and help her get her food or something to drink. I also used my best friend, my Bluetooth stethoscope, to help me with getting her vital signs. And that was one reason why I was so close to her before she passed. I also go help my Aunt Wanda. I help her as much as I can. I go over almost daily to see if they need help with her. Nurses use a stethoscope to listen to a patient's internal body sounds, such as the heart and lungs and intestines, and much more. It also can be used to help check with blood pressure. I want to go back into nursing because I believe it's the calling the Lord has given me to do. I feel like I'm actually helping people because that's what I want to do, is to help people and make sure they are in good health. I know a few here in the church that are nurses, like Tanner and a few others. Now, is your stethoscope your best friend? Because I know mine is. It helps me listen to what I need to. Also, we wear scrubs because they are easier to clean and are comfortable. Not all angels have wings. Some of us wear scrubs and use a stethoscope to listen with. Now, listen to the Word of God. I read the Bible with some of my clients and patients. And that's why I'm up here in my scrubs and with my stethoscope, to show you that not all angels have wings and regular ears. So be nice and respectful to a nurse, a CNA, a direct support professional nurse, and caregiver, because we are here to listen and care for you. Be nice to me one day. I might be your nurse, because needles come in different sizes, pills come in different shapes and sizes, and you take them all in different ways. So be sure how you treat someone, because they may be your nurse someday. Remember, us nurses or CNAs or whoever else we are, we know how to do our job and help you and your loved ones. As most of you know, I was admitted to the hospital on June 2nd with strep throat and swollen tonsils and pneumonia, and that led to heart problems. Now, I was in the hospital until June 7th. I was supposed to be flown out to Wichita with an air tube down my throat in case my tonsils swelled up to where I quit breathing. I was supposed to go to a hospital that could care better for my health, but there was no hospital with any rooms open, so I had to stay in Liberal. I did have one doctor come in and ask me if my heart did stop, if they wanted me to have them try and bring me back. And I said, yes, of course. And if I was unable to make that decision or any decisions, who was going to make those decisions? I said, my wife would. Would make those decisions for me. I was so scared, so I was in Liberal's hospital for the treatment. And they had specialists on standby if anything happened to me. But while I was there in Liberal, I had a great care team of nurses, CNAs, and doctors, and I had one nurse that made sure I was taken real good care of. We would sit there and talk for a little bit about sports and weather stuff, which I like to talk about. Also, I had a great group of people who came to see me in the hospital. And people who did call and check on me, like my wife Shalisha coming to be with me while I was there, and Riley, and also Pam Tony for coming to see me, and Julie for texting me, and Steve Morris for texting and checking on me, and also my dad for calling me and checking on me daily. I understand now why nurses and CNAs do what they do to help us when we are sick. When I got released, Riley was there at the hospital to help me. And I am thankful for that. I remember I had a client that told me this Bible verse, Psalms 105, verse 8. We pray, Lord, that you would be faithful to those whom you have chosen to be nurses, doctors, and all those in healthcare. He told me that verse, and it stuck with me while I was working in healthcare. And he told me another verse that also stuck with me, Psalms 90, verse 17. May your favor be showered upon our healthcare workers. God, give them favor and place a hedge of protection around them to guard them from illness so they can care for the sick. Now, I read those verses over and over while I was in the hospital. Now, you might be a caregiver in someone's life. Just remember that if you are caring for someone, one day someone will care for you. Now, when you are a caregiver or something to a loved one, as they are sick and can't care for themselves anymore, it does get tough and it does put stress on you. I know how that feels. Now to my sermon on why God made nurses, CNAs, and caregivers, and more. God said, I need someone to care for the sick, the fragile, the broken, and the dying. So God made a nurse, CNA, and caregiver. God said, I need someone to work long shifts and be on call for 24 hours each day. Someone with a heart of a servant and will sacrifice. Someone who will live a life dedicated to the well-being of others. He said, I need someone who isn't afraid of coming in contact with blood or other bodily fluids. Someone who has guts and can stomach the sight and sounds of birth and death. Someone who can calm a crying baby and comfort a crying mother. Someone who can send a person from this life to the next with dignity and compassion. God said, I need someone who can distract people from pain with a radiant smile and expectational kindness. Someone whose glowing personality makes the prick of a needle, the incisions of a tube, and administrating of medication almost painless. I need someone whose tenderness is directed towards people of every age and every background. Someone who is able to show love in every circumstance. He said, I need someone with intuition, someone who can silence the noise that swarms the hospital halls for long enough to hear my voice and trust my guidance. Someone who believes in miracles, but also understands that I always won't allow one. I need someone who is in the absence of a miracle, has the ability to spread hope and shine light in an often dark world. God said, I need someone gentle enough to cradle a sleeping baby and strong enough to carry the burden of a baby's death. Someone who is the voice for the aging and the deceased. Someone who goes home empty because they poured themselves out for those who are suffering. He said, I need someone who won't cut corners, someone who will work diligently to provide patients with the best care possible, someone whose strength defies logic, who can physically carry human beings and lift their spirits when I hope. When hope feels hard to come by. Someone who can imprint even a fleck of joy on the heart of another in the most dire of circumstances. God said, I need someone who will fight for life and leave the battle over death up to me. Someone who will hold the hand of a living and dying person. Someone who will send patients home, whether on earth or in heaven, with a smile and prayer. Someone who will rejoice with those who rejoice and mourn with those who mourn. He said, I need someone who will unite with patience in times of both gratitude and grief. Someone who is mighty, compassionate, intelligent, creative, and humble. Someone who has seen the worst in people but still believe in the best. Someone who understands the true meaning of the term, handle with care. God said, I need someone who is a very special person and special enough to be remembered, even after the pain has been forgotten. Someone who will have a positive impact on all humanity. Someone who will answer one of my highest callings. We are angels in scrubs without wings and with special ears, and that's why I'm up here in my scrubs and with my stethoscope to give you the visual picture that not all angels have wings. Do you see me up here with wings? No, you see me up here in my scrubs and with my stethoscope. If we can be assistance to you, please come forward as we stand and sing.